Today, it is the legal landscape, and in response to several dog attacks in December 2020, the government passed an act called the Dogs Liability for Attacks Act, which came into effect on December 23, 2020. Now, in the years since this legislation has passed, there have been less reports of dog attacks in the media. If you were attacked by a dog, what legal course of action can be taken? If someone trespasses on the property and they are attacked by the dog, am I protected by law? These are questions we will have answered today. We are joined by Kelly Akin, who is partner in the corporate and commercial department at DunnCox Attorneys-at-Law. Kelly, welcome to Home Run.
Hey, Deon. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, it's going to be good to have you. We've got a bite in the legal landscape this afternoon. Kelly, who is considered the owner of the dog?
All right, Deon. So under the Act, the owner of a dog would be considered to be either one, whoever had custody of the dog at the time of the attack, or two, if the attack was in a public place, then the person who caused that dog to be in the public place. Or the third one would be the occupier of a property where the dog is kept or permitted to live. And in this context, occupier can be the owner of the house or a tenant or any other person permitted to occupy the premises. But I will say, importantly for the parents and guardians out there, if your child, that's under 18 of course, is the owner of a dog, then you, the parent or guardian, will be liable for that dog under this act.
All right, so we've established who is the owner, who is liable. So then what are the obligations of owners under the law?
All right, so in public, the owners are required to keep their dogs restrained. And when we say restrained, we're talking about some type of leash with a collar or a harness. If the dog isn't restrained, then he must be contained, and contained being a kennel or some sort of enclosure to keep the dog contained. But what this really means is that the restraints must be done in such a way that the dog's movements are kept under control. And the dog is prevented from attacking or being a menace to other people or animals. Owners are also not allowed to have their dogs in public places where they're not specifically allowed. There are some instances in the Act where dogs would be allowed to be out in public, for example, police dogs or, disability service dogs. But the question really is, what happens if an owner fails to do these things? And the truth is, in the first instance, it's just a warning. But in the second instance, the owner can be fined up to $500,000. And I mean, we're talking about not where the dog attacks somebody, but if you are walking with your dog on the road and don't have them restrained in the way I described, that could be the penalty.
Can you share with us the difference for the owner's liability in private spaces and public spaces? Let's look at the private spaces first. What is the owner's liability?
Sure. So if you have a dog at your house, under this act, you are liable for any injury caused by your dog outside of that property, so that property where the dog is permitted to live. This law does not create any new liability for dog owners on their property. However, there are other aspects of law where these owners would be liable. One example would be occupier's liability. If somebody comes to your house as a visitor, you have a duty of care generally, not only under this act, but generally to make sure that your dog, is behaved well enough. The takeaway from this, though, is that for most cases, there will be no criminal liability for a dog attack on your private property. Criminal liability separate from any sort of compensation you have to give someone.
So what about liability in public spaces?
Well, the Act is pretty clear on that one. A dog owner will be criminally liable if their dog causes injury to a person or animal in a public space. And this shift to criminal liability is really to address the issues that we've seen where children or innocent bystanders are walking, minding their own business, and they get attacked on the street.
Can you share with us what the penalties are and what can a victim do?
Yep. So, like I said, there's criminal penalties. And when it comes to the criminal penalties, you're looking at, in the first instance, a first warning, which is a $500,000 fine or 6 months in prison. The second warning would be $1 million fine or 6 months in prison. And those are the upper limits, the maximum that you're really looking at. Mm-hmm. But if you're talking about a dog that caused death or serious injury, then the owner could be fined or go to prison for up to 5 years. And worse yet, if the dog attacks someone and causes that sort of injury or death, and the owner is there and does nothing to stop it or restrain the dog, then you're still talking about a fine or imprisonment up to 15 years.
Can the court become involved? How can the court be involved, and what are the court's powers?
Well, just before we touch on the court's powers, I should also mention that in addition to those criminal fines, a victim could also sue a dog owner separately. So if you've lost wages at your job, or if you're injured and you have to get medical attention, those kind of things can also be, you can sue for that outside of that. But to go back to your question in terms of the court, the court can actually create additional orders. I mean, they can order for a dog to be put down by a vet, and that's at the expense of the owner themselves, or really any other order that is deemed necessary for the management or control of the dog. It really depends on the circumstances.
It's a lot for us to bite into this afternoon, not being playful about this at all, because it is quite a serious topic that we have to look at, and it is important for each person, especially if you are a dog owner, to understand the changes that are there. Do you have any hashtags, did you know, about this for us?
Well, hashtags feel like it should be a very short thing, but what I will say is a nice little tidbit is that where the Act speaks about first and second warnings, it doesn't have to relate to the same dog. So once you've been warned once about one dog, the second time you get warned is considered that second warning, and that's when you're looking at that $1 million fine.
So the warning is for you, the owner.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Kelly Akin, thank you so much. Partner in the corporate and commercial department at DunnCox Attorneys-at-Law. She's really given us a lot, hasn't she, for the legal landscape. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you, Deon.
A pleasure having you. I'm always eager to listen to these tidbits, and the information, Patrice. So anyone who owns a dog now, and we're looking at the changes that has happened, even pre-COVID towards post-COVID. Look at our question of the day as well. It's the same thing. Things that used to be a nuisance to someone saying, you know what, the bike noise is too loud. And then someone saying, but wasn't it loud before COVID? But have the laws changed? The dogs have been out and about, but now people are the authorities are taking it much more seriously, what animals can do. And I'm a dog lover. We used to have sometimes 7-8 dogs at a time. We had the space for it. We're in the country and we needed dogs. Dogs helped us on the land. Edge 105.1, 105.3 FM. Join us next week again. We'll have another exciting legal landscape for you.